How do you save learner data from PowerPoint? To save learner data, you need several macros. First, you need to get the learner's name. Second, you need to create a file on your computer where you store the data. Third, you need to collect data from application slides in your functional prototype. And fourth, you need to save this data to the student response file that you created. Here is a simple macro labeled username for getting the learner's name. This macro uses one variable, username. Variables are containers into which we can store information. It is necessary to tell the computer what kind of information we intend to store in our variables. The dim or dimension statements serve this function. Dim statements always precede the macros. It is convenient to place all of the dim statements at the beginning of our code. The first command gets the user name by providing an input box with the prompt, type your name. This input box stores the name that is typed in the variable username. The second command merely displays a welcome message. This macro was attached to the name button that appears on this screen. When the name button is clicked, the username macro is executed. Please go to the next slide to learn how to create a learner data file. Creating a learner file is a bit more complex. Several macros are necessary. First, it is necessary to get the learner's name. Second, it is necessary to tell the computer where the file will be stored. Third, it is necessary to create the data file. You have previously seen the macro for username. Here is the macro for get drive name. This macro allows the user to indicate the drive where the learner's data will be stored. The macro requires three variables: drive name, file name, and username. Each of these variables must be included in a dim as string statement at the beginning of the code. For simplicity, I did not show the dim statements here. The first command provides an input box where the user is prompted to supply the letter for the computer drive where the data file will be stored. The second statement forms the drive name by combining the drive letter with the user name and the words responsefile.txt. The third statement presents a message box that allows the user to check the file name that is created. Here is the macro for the create data file. The first statement creates the file name. The next two statements create the file on the drive that has been specified. The computer code here is a bit more complicated, but it's not necessary for you to understand this code. The last two statements add a text line to the file that is the user's name and the date and time when the file was created. Finally, here's the register macro that combines all three of these macros into a single macro. The first statement executes the your name macro. The second statement executes the get drive name macro. And the third statement executes the create data file macro. The register macro has been assigned to the register button on the screen. Clicking on this button will execute the macros. To see the file you created, you will need to go to your computer drive to find the file. A footnote is appropriate here. If you go to the Visual Basic Code associated with this PowerPoint, you will find all of these macros with annotation. However, you will note that there are more statements included in some of the macros than I have shown here. The additional statements in the your name macro require the user to type something. The additional statements in the get drive name macro also requires the user to type something and includes a statement to eliminate any extraneous spaces that the user may have accidentally added to the drive letter. If you copy the Visual Basic code from this PowerPoint demonstration and paste it into your own PowerPoint presentation, you will not have to worry about making mistakes when you type the code. Be sure to include the dim statements at the beginning of your code.